Today on Investigate TV Plus, two families hundreds of miles apart both feel they are victims of a painfully slow justice system. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Tisha Powell. While they are extreme examples, both cases draw attention to the thousands of Americans experiencing delayed justice.
We just want justice, and we want it now. We've endured this way too long.
Plus, erasing scars of the past, how a tattoo artist is helping survivors of human trafficking heal.
Then how a craft shop helps artists on any budget create a masterpiece. In-depth stories that inform and inspire. You're watching Investigate TV Plus.
The Sixth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution guarantees Americans the right to a speedy trial and access to an attorney if they cannot afford one.
But most people sitting in jails across the U.S. are legally innocent. Of the estimated 550,000 people locked up in local jails, more than 70% haven't been convicted of their accused crime.
The man you're about to meet spent 10 years in jail awaiting trial.
It's believed to be one of the longest such detentions in American history.
Investigative reporter Andy Parati was there for his release and reveals what kept him from his day in court for so long.
Maurice Jimerson is a free man.
Oh my God.
Greeted by his family as he walked out of the Dougherty County Jail,
Ooh, look just like your mom.
including his daughter. It's their first hug in nearly 11 years.
How's it feel to be out and see your mom and your daughter?
Little girl, man. Little girl, man.
Yeah.
See, I ain't gonna cry in jail.
It's okay to cry.
Maurice pleaded guilty to aggravated assault and possession of a firearm as part of a negotiated plea deal with the district attorney's office. Albany police arrested Maurice and 4 others for double murder in May 2013. Nearly all of his co-defendants were acquitted by juries years ago, but Maurice remained behind bars more than 10 years, legally innocent, awaiting trial. Delayed due to the pandemic, a flood in the courthouse, and no attorney working on his behalf. It's believed to be one of the longest pretrial detentions in American history.
Nobody talks about it. There is no news coverage.
His mother spoke to us nearly a year ago, desperate for help.
Nobody's listening. It's been 10 years and nobody has listened.
Attorney Andrew Fleischman heard about Maurice's case on Investigate TV and offered to represent him for free.
You don't need a law degree to know there's something wrong here. We're not supposed to punish them until after a jury has found beyond a reasonable doubt that they're guilty.
2 months later, Maurice finally got his day in court, but the case ended in a mistrial because the jury could not reach a verdict.
Ain't no moving on, man, that's my baby.
Desmond Williams is one of the 2 men who died in the 2013 shooting involving Maurice's arrest. His parents said they wanted justice and another trial.
I'm holding on because I said that I promised my son that I was going to hold on to the end.
After the mistrial, Maurice went back to jail until more than a decade after his arrest, the 33-year-old is home. He and his mother attributing the release on our reporting.
We would still be stuck from the beginning. And I thank you so much, Andy. We would not be here if it were not for you.
Part of Maurice Jimerson's plea agreement includes a 19-year probation outside of jail. He's also banned from Dougherty County, Georgia, and surrounding counties. While he maintains his innocence, Maurice says he took the plea agreement because he didn't want to risk spending more time in jail. In Atlanta, I'm Andy Parati.
From Southwest Georgia to Kansas City, Missouri, the family of Brian Darby says they've been held in judicial purgatory for years, waiting for his accused murderer to go to trial.
Investigative reporter Angie Racono uncovers another side to a slow-moving criminal justice system.
And how crime victims and their families are paying the price.
And I know you were saying it's hard sometimes to come out here.
Honestly, I think this is probably like my 4th or 5th time coming here.
Allison Boddicker feels her father's presence at his grave and when the wind blows. Like the rest of her family, she tries to focus on the good memories. Her dad, Mike Darby, owned a restaurant called Coach's. He started a charity bike ride with his friends. Mike was a grandpa full of life. The grandkids were in elementary and preschool when he was murdered. 3 of them are now learning to drive.
In and out of court, hearing after hearing, with lots of delays and lots of continuances, and they're aware of that.
It's been 7 years since Mike Darby was murdered along the Indian Creek Trail. It twists and turns throughout the city. Nature blends with the hum of traffic. Investigators say this was a pathway for a predator, and Mike Darby wasn't the only victim. Investigators called it the KC Trail Area Homicides, as middle-aged white men on and near trails were killed. Investigators eventually solved the string of murders with DNA and surveillance video. Prosecutors say Frederick Scott committed 6 murders. Court documents say Scott admitted he dragged one body off the trail to hide it, and that he reported the murder weapons as stolen to distance himself from the crimes. Scott had no connection to the victims. They were all strangers he followed, mostly along the trail. Scott reportedly said under his breath during an interrogation, they didn't see it coming. Did you ever think the legal process would drag on this long?
Never in a million years.
Allison and her siblings describe a legal purgatory.
The case just sat stagnant for years because people didn't do what they were supposed to do.
There's anger, even guilt.
It's weird because you feel like, it sounds weird. If the situation was reversed, if it was me that this happened to, I feel like my dad would have gotten the process done by now.
The case has passed from one public defender to the next 4 times, so the case essentially starts over. Trial dates have been set, then postponed 6 times in 6 years. A big question before the court, competency to stand trial. At times, Scott refuses to take his medication. He's been found both competent and incompetent at different times. It's a question still lingering before the court.
He took his last breath 7 years ago because this guy snuck up behind him and shot him in the back of the head, but yet he's got all the rights. We have very little rights, and nobody's even moving that trial down the road.
Mike's siblings hope they live to see the trial.
And 7 years is too long. And realistically, we're not going to have a trial this year.
No.
We'll be lucky if we have one next year.
True.
Mike's children feel their dad's case highlights everything broken in Jackson County, which is why they are going public, saying it's not just about Mike, it's about all the families waiting for justice in this case. It's about all of the victims in Jackson County.
This should never happen again. There should never be 7+ years where families sit around and wait for their day in court and try to do what we're doing.
We reached out to the presiding judge, the prosecutor's office, and the public defender's office. We received no comment. This case is far from trial. We recently learned that Frederick Scott hasn't been consistently taking his required medication, a fact revealed at his last court hearing. So he's currently considered incompetent for trial. In Kansas City, I'm Angie Racono.
Still ahead, it's a leading cause of death for pregnant women, yet there's no test to diagnose this life-threatening complication until now.
It can affect your liver, your kidneys, it can affect your pancreas, it can affect your brain.
We sit down with the doctor who created it to talk about how it works and why she thinks it'll save lives.
Plus,
afterwards, the transformation, it's almost like a weight's lifted off of them.
a chance for human trafficking survivors to rewrite their stories. This isn't an ordinary day for these officers in Ohio. Months went into planning this prostitution sting.
I do the intel part, trying to figure out who the players are.
Officers post up at a motel off a main highway looking for drugs, men who solicit prostitution, and sex trafficking survivors.
So the first thing is to make sure that they're safe. And secondarily, try to get them services that they can rely upon later to maybe try to get out of this industry.
They start by creating a woman's profile, sometimes spoofing their own image, then posting it to sites that cater to prostitution. Investigators work on setting up dates by chatting with prospective Johns.
You never know what you're gonna get or who you're gonna get.
After getting in place in the hotel room, one by one.
Police, Amherst Police, step inside. Amherst Police, under arrest. Put your hands behind your back.
Men drop by and get busted. Volunteers are also on hand with resources for any trafficking survivors they come across.
And whatever we can do to help stop it is what we're going to do.
You're under arrest.
Survivors who manage to escape sex trafficking are often left with permanent reminders of their trauma, branding tattoos tying them to their past.
An artist in Arizona recognized the issue and decided to help. Reporter Mary Coleman shows us how she's helping survivors erase the scars of the past.
I want something that is me and not all those other things. So I'm excited.
For some, a tattoo is a form of expression, allowing a person to tell a story. But for others, the ink can be a painful reminder.
It's one of those things, it's like I let this person have that over me for so long. And so now I'm just excited to put something that's just me, that just makes me feel like I own me in a way, and not all those other things.
Mariah was pulled into sex trafficking when she was a teenager, branded with a tattoo at age 16, and she is one of many.
It was typical for him to get his name on girls because he was just very possessive, and definitely you're mine, you do what I tell you to do type of thing. But when I got it, as crazy as it sounds, it almost felt like I was good enough to be.
But today, she continues the process of covering it up with an animal she loves, an elephant. Gina Jernukian is a tattoo specialist who decided to get certified for removals years ago, and that's when her life changed.
The next thing I know, I would say in a matter of 3 months, there were so many odd tattoos, crowns and names and just tattoos that didn't make sense. Enough so where I started asking around, what are these? And someone had told me they're brandings. I didn't even know that existed.
Gina decided to take action, reaching out to others to see how they could help these sex trafficking victims get their tattoos removed or covered. That's how Soul Survivor Inc. was created, and it's been changing lives like Mariah's ever since. Johnny at Broken Clover Tattoo is among the artists who are giving their time and talent pro bono to allow survivors a new lease on life.
Afterwards, the transformation, it's almost like a weight's lifted off of them. They don't have to see this visible signs of this painful past every single day that they look in the mirror.
Starting fresh with a new tattoo, Mariah has turned her life around, and she says becoming a mother has changed her perspective on so much.
I got out of it when I was 24, so 8 years ago, and I'm grateful for every moment of it because I was not supposed to make it out of that, I think.
Mariah tells me she does not know where she would be had Soul Survivor not stepped in. Now, she is paying it forward, becoming an advocate for other victims.
I decided quite some time ago that I could let it be just something that happened to me, or I could let it be something that I use to stop it, hopefully, from happening. I just try to be what I needed from someone when I was there.
Elephants have an incredible memory and thick skin, characteristics of Mariah as well. She says though she will never forget what she's dealt with, her resiliency has kept her alive, and this new tattoo will always remind her of that.
It's a new beginning. They chose to put what they want on themselves. It's something beautiful, something that's meaningful, something that doesn't cause pain every time they look at it.
You know, I think she said it best at the end of that story. The new tattoo gives them like a new beginning. It kind of redefines who they are as a person.
Exactly, and I was just listening to her story, just thinking how brave she is to tell the story and to be able to move on with this new life that she has that just seems so amazing.
With a new baby. Very nice, yes.
Yeah. The State Department lists other red flags for human trafficking: living with an employer, multiple people living in a cramped space, and the inability to speak with an individual alone. The National Human Trafficking Hotline is available 24/7 to take reports at 1-888-373-7888, or you can text 233-733.
Still ahead, upcycled and underpriced, the craft store that might have you rethinking what you throw in the trash.
It's great to see the creativity and the ability for folks to express themselves in ways that they never thought possible.
Plus, her doctors dismissed her symptoms.
It was just because you're pregnant, this is why you're doing this or why you feel like this.
How a new test confirmed her gut feeling and helped diagnose a dangerous pregnancy complication. It's one of the leading causes of death among pregnant women. Preeclampsia is a pregnancy complication typically associated with high blood pressure.
While doctors believe several factors could cause preeclampsia, they're now able to diagnose the condition earlier in the hopes of saving lives.
Reporter Lauren Lowry introduces us to the first woman to try the new test.
When you ask Taisha Kennard about her recent pregnancy, here's how she describes it.
Traumatic. That's the word that I say. It was very traumatic.
In early February, at 32 weeks pregnant, her feet and legs began to swell. She had trouble breathing and constant headaches.
It was just because you're pregnant, this is why you're doing this or why you feel like this. And I felt like something wasn't right.
And she was right. Within days, at her regular pregnancy doctor's appointment,
she was like, you need to be admitted into the hospital right now.
Taisha's symptoms sounded like preeclampsia. Preeclampsia can cause seizure, stroke, organ damage in the mom, and premature birth for the baby. If untreated, it leads to death for both mom and baby. The most common signs are swelling, especially around the face and eyes, a headache that won't go away, even with medicine, upper right belly pain, sometimes mistaken for indigestion or the flu, and difficulty breathing, gasping, or panting. But the telltale sign,
my blood pressure wasn't going down,
is high blood pressure. Taisha's symptoms were ominous. On her second day in the hospital, a doctor she didn't know came to her room.
She told me that she was a high-risk pregnancy doctor and that she wanted to do this new blood test on me.
That doctor was Connie Graves, one of the country's foremost researchers in preeclampsia, and she's right here in Nashville.
Preeclampsia really is a disease of your heart and your vessels. And it can affect your liver, your kidneys, it can affect your pancreas, it can affect your brain. So it's not just about the blood pressure.
Up until recently, obstetricians like Dr. Graves haven't had surefire tools to diagnose preeclampsia. But in February, St. Thomas Midtown became the first hospital in the country with access to this new FDA-approved preeclampsia test.
The test is the first of its kind. It measures two biomarkers, one that predicts heart problems in the pregnant woman and one that predicts stillbirth in the baby. The test can tell with up to 96% accuracy which moms are really at risk and may need an early delivery.
What difference is this going to make for this population of women?
Our ability to draw this test may actually answer some questions that we need to answer.
We're having a baby today.
After 4 days in the hospital at 7.5 months pregnant, Taisha was forced to deliver Talon, who weighed 4 pounds, 5 ounces. Talon stayed in the NICU for 2 weeks. Taisha needed 3 blood transfusions to stay alive and was released 1 week later.
I can't rush that, baby.
She was the first woman in America to receive the test. They're both home, safe, now.
It's a love that I can't describe. It's a love that I've never felt before. When I hold her, she just gives me so much joy.
Do you know what could have happened if this wasn't caught?
We both could have died.
The Mayo Clinic lists the following risk factors for preeclampsia. Preeclampsia in a previous pregnancy, being pregnant with more than one baby, diabetes, kidney disease, and use of in vitro fertilization.
Still ahead, opportunity inspires art.
How many amazing artists have we never seen because they didn't have access to materials?
The craft store opening up creativity to anyone.
There's the saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure.
A Georgia shop is repurposing craft supplies that would typically go into landfills to make them more affordable for artists and teachers.
Reporter Sawyer Bussey shows us how.
We have plastic baskets of all sorts and shapes and sizes over here. This is kind of container land.
You never know where the next great artist might be, where they might grow up, where they will go to school. Maybe they'll be from Georgia.
How many amazing artists have we never seen because they didn't have access to materials?
This shop, Scraplana, is filled with, well, scraps of a little bit of everything an artist, a crafter, might need.
If you've only ever colored with a Crayola colored pencil, you don't know the magic of Prismacolor.
Scraplana is a nonprofit focused on accessibility and helping the environment. They try and eliminate the amount of trash that goes into landfills by encouraging people to drop in and drop off items that can be repurposed through art.
There are teachers who spend an average of $500 a year on their classrooms. Here at Scraplana, they can save money.
You might see scraps of fabric or pieces of tile. An artist might see a new sweater or a mosaic. You can pick up items for as little as 10 cents. They say they've saved over 90,000 pounds of crafting supplies from going into landfills since they opened their doors.
There used to be reports that crafting was dying out in America and that it wasn't popular among young people, but through my job, I see that crafting is still very much alive and very much appreciated and celebrated here.
They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and artists, teachers, and art lovers come here to turn their artistic visions into realities.
It's just awesome. It gives me chills. It's great to see the creativity and the ability for folks to express themselves in ways that they never thought possible.
And that's it for us on Investigate TV Plus. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Tisha Powell. Thanks for watching.
On the next Investigate TV Plus, a friendly message with the promise of easy money leads to months of deception.
And so you recognize your friend's name.
I recognize my friend's name and her picture. And her picture comes with it.
How scammers are using your trust in social media connections against you. Plus, ways to help keep your money safe.